I want to start today with a spoiler alert. Now, it feels a little absurd to offer a spoiler alert for a story that's been a bestseller for roughly 2,500 years. But the power of this particular story lies in its devastating, methodical, and inevitable reveals. It is, in essence, the world's first and perhaps greatest psychological thriller, structured as a cold case investigation where the lead detective, a man of brilliant intellect and unimpeachable character, works tirelessly to find a culprit, only to discover with dawning horror that the man he is hunting is himself. The story is Oedipus Rex, or Oedipus the King, a masterpiece of Athenian tragedy written by the great playwright Sophocles around 429 BC. It is a cornerstone of Western literature, a work so profound that Aristotle considered it the perfect model of tragedy, and Sigmund Freud borrowed its name to describe one of the most fundamental concepts of psychoanalysis. But don't let its age or its academic prestige fool you. This is no dusty museum piece. This is a raw, brutal, and fast-paced story of a man who runs headfirst into a destiny he has spent his entire life trying to escape. It's a play that grabs you by the collar from the first scene and doesn't let go until its soul-crushing, unforgettable conclusion. So, what are the burning questions we're going to investigate today as we put this ancient case under the microscope? First, we will lay out the facts of the case. We'll walk through the plot of this extraordinary play, not just as a summary, but as the intricate, suspense-filled procedural that it is. How does Sophocles use masterful pacing and suspense to turn a story whose ending the original audience already knew into a nail-biting thriller? Next, we'll ask the big philosophical question that beats at the heart of the play. Is this a story about the inescapable cruelty of fate, or is it about the danger of human pride and ignorance? Was Oedipus merely a puppet of the gods, or did his own actions, his own character, seal his doom? This is the timeless debate of fate versus free will. Then we'll explore the brilliant literary technique Sophocles employs. We'll delve into the concepts of dramatic irony, how the audience, knowing more than the characters, creates unbearable tension, and the idea of blindness versus sight, both literal and metaphorical. And finally, we'll ask why this ancient, horrifying story of patricide and incest has endured. What is the so-called Oedipus complex? And what can a 2,500-year-old Greek tragedy possibly teach us about the modern human condition, about our own struggles with truth, denial, and the search for identity? A word for warning, as is our custom, this episode is just an entry point, a key to unlock the door to a very complex and profound work of art. To truly grasp the genius of Sophocles, the intricate poetry, and the philosophical depth, you must eventually go to the source. Read the play, watch a performance, grapple with it yourself. True knowledge is not a destination arrived at by shortcuts, but a landscape explored through patient and personal investigation. I'm just opening the door here, guys. So, prepare yourselves, we're about to descend into the dark, brilliant, and tragic world of Oedipus the King. I'm Danny, and this is a new episode from English Plus Podcast. Before we dive into the specifics of the plot, we need to set the stage, literally. When an ancient Athenian audience gathered in the theater of Dionysus to watch Oedipus Rex, it wasn't like us going to the movies for a bit of escapism. It was a major civic and religious event, part of a festival honoring Dionysus, the god of wine, revelry, and theater. The stories, often drawn from shared myths, weren't meant to be simple entertainment. They were meant to be a communal exploration of the biggest question of their time, about justice, about the relationship between gods and mortals, about the nature of a good society, and the flaws of human character. The play opens in the city of Thebes, which is in the grips of a terrible plague. The crops are failing, the livestock are dying, and the people are suffering. They turn to their king, Oedipus, for help. And why wouldn't they? Oedipus is a hero. He's not the hereditary king. He won the throne on pure merit. He arrived in Thebes as a stranger and saved the city from a monstrous creature, the Sphinx, by solving her famously difficult riddle. He is brilliant, decisive, and deeply beloved by his people. He is the very model of a successful ruler. Oedipus, eager to save his city, has already sent his brother-in-law Creon to the oracle at Delphi to ask the god Apollo for guidance. Creon returns with a divine message. The plague is a punishment because the murderer of the previous king, Laius, is living unpunished in Thebes. To end the plague, the city must find this killer and either execute or exile him. This is where the detective story begins. Oedipus, with his characteristic confidence and sense of duty, launches a full-blown investigation. He pronounces a solemn curse upon the killer, wherever he may be, and upon anyone who harbors him. He vows to hunt this person down as if he were his own father. And right there, Sophocles masterfully deploys what is perhaps the most important literary device in the entire play: dramatic irony. Dramatic irony is the gap between what a character knows and what the audience knows. The original Athenian audience knew the myth of Oedipus inside and out. They knew from the moment Oedipus pronounced that curse that he was in fact cursing himself. Every confident vow he makes, every step he takes to find the killer is, for the audience, a step closer to his own self-destruction. It's excruciating to watch. It's the same feeling you get when you're watching a horror movie and you shout at the screen, "Don't go in there!" The character can't hear you, and their ignorance leads them to their doom. Sophocles is the absolute master of this technique. Oedipus summons the blind prophet Tiresias to help. Tiresias knows the truth, but out of pity for Oedipus, refuses to speak. Oedipus, whose defining characteristic is his sharp intellect, cannot stand being denied information. His confidence boils over into anger and suspicion. He accuses Tiresias of being part of the plot to murder Laius. This is a classic example of hubris, a Greek term for excessive pride or self-confidence that leads to a character's downfall. Oedipus's pride in his own intelligence makes him blind to the wisdom of the prophet. Goaded by the accusations, Tiresias finally snaps and tells Oedipus the truth outright. You are the curse, the corruption of the land. You are the murderer you seek. But the truth is so monstrous, so far outside the realm of possibility that Oedipus can't process it. He thinks it's a political conspiracy, a lie concocted by Creon and Tiresias to overthrow him. Here we see another central theme: the paradox of blindness and sight. Tiresias is literally blind, yet he can see the horrific truth. Oedipus has perfect sight, yet he is completely blind to the reality of his situation. The investigation continues, and each piece of new information intended to exonerate Oedipus only tightens the noose. His wife Jocasta, trying to comfort him and prove that prophecies are meaningless, tells him the story of her former husband, King Laius. She says a prophecy once claimed Laius would be killed by his own son. To prevent this, they pierced their infant son's ankles and had a servant leave him to die on a mountainside. As for Laius, she says, he was killed years later by robbers at a place where three roads meet. Instead of comforting Oedipus, this story plants the first seed of real terror in his mind. A place where three roads meet, he asks, his voice trembling. He remembers killing a man who matched Laius's description at just such a crossroads on his journey to Thebes. He is starting to suspect he might be Laius's killer. But the other part of the prophecy, that he would marry his mother, is still unthinkable. The tension ratchets up. A messenger arrives from Corinth, Oedipus's childhood home, with what seems to be good news. His father, King Polybus, has died of old age. Oedipus is overjoyed. This seems to prove the prophecy he received as a young man that he would kill his own father and marry his mother is false. But the messenger, wanting to fully relieve Oedipus's fears, reveals another piece of the puzzle. Polybus and his wife were not his biological parents. The messenger himself, as a young shepherd, was given an infant with pierced ankles by a servant of King Laius and gave that baby to the childless king of Corinth. This is the moment of anagnorisis, or critical discovery for Jocasta. She puts the pieces together. She knows. She begs Oedipus to stop the investigation. "My poor boy, I hope you never find out who you are," she cries before running into the palace. But Oedipus, driven by his relentless need for the truth, his greatest virtue and his fatal flaw, presses on. He's on the verge of knowing everything, but he refuses to turn back. He summons the final witness, the old shepherd who was supposed to have left him to die. The shepherd, under threat of torture, finally reveals the last horrifying piece of the puzzle. The baby he was given was the son of Laius and Jocasta. And there it is, the truth in all its horror. The prophecy has been fulfilled in every detail. Oedipus, the hero, the savior of Thebes, is the son of Laius and Jocasta. He is the murderer of his father and the husband of his mother. The climax is swift and brutal. A servant comes from the palace and reports that Jocasta had hanged herself. Oedipus, in a frenzy of grief and self-loathing, takes the golden brooches from her dress and plunges them into his own eyes, blinding himself. His reason is chilling. He can no longer bear to look upon the world he has polluted, upon the children he has fathered with his own mother. The man who was blind to the truth now makes his physical state match his metaphorical one. He has finally, truly seen. This is the moment of catharsis. It's an idea Aristotle developed inspired by this play. He argued that by watching the tragic heroes fall, by experiencing the intense emotions of pity for Oedipus' suffering and fear that such a thing could happen, the audience undergoes a kind of emotional cleansing or purgation. We leave the theater not depressed, but purified. Oedipus, now blind and disgraced, begs to be exiled, finally fulfilling his own curse. He has lost everything, but in doing so, he has gained a terrible self-knowledge. The play ends with the chorus giving a final somber warning. "Count no man happy till he dies, free of pain at last." It's a devastating conclusion to what is arguably the most tightly constructed and relentless tragedy ever written. And that, my friends, is the story of Oedipus the King. Now, I'll have to say again, even if I talk for hours about it, it's nothing like reading it yourself. So if you really want to grasp the nuances, the details, the beauty, the complexity of this play, you will have to read it for yourself. Or you can watch it if you want. But anyway, dig in a little bit deeper because that's the only true path to knowledge. And with that being said, we're done with the topic, and now it's time for us to move on to our focus on language, our vocabulary and speaking section, and then we're gonna have our discussion questions later. That's what we're gonna do next. Don't go anywhere. I'll be right back. This is going to be the end of the free preview of this episode. If you'd like to listen to the full episode, you can do that by subscribing on Apple Podcasts or on Patreon. You can find the links in the description of the episode. I'll see you on the other side.